Hello and welcome to Backstage with Gig Performer. My name is Brett Pontecorvo, and we are here every Thursday going live with musicians, performers, and audio professionals of all types who are using Gig Performer to power their live performances. Week after week, I'm kind of blown away by the way people show up and bring their A game, not just to the stream, but to the projects that they're doing, and the ways in which Gig Performer allows them to really build a rig that matches the various contexts that folks are performing in. If you're watching right now, do say hello in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know where you are tuning in from, and we'll be sure to give you a shout out. We've got a Gig Performer newbie here tuning in from Geneva, Switzerland. Hello and welcome. Hope you get a lot out of today's session, and I know that you will because I have seen this rig. So definitely stick around. Let's see here. We've got Fabrizio from Turin, Italy. Thanks, Fabrizio, for being here. I know you're joining us on a lot of Thursdays. We appreciate you. Tom Wright from Richmond. Love it. Welcome. Morgan the Cat Mom. I love it. Fantastic. Also, that is an amazing little icon there. Is that a space robot dog playing a keyboard? I everything about that is my favorite. Love it. And Russ's mom from Cincinnati. Hi, Mom. So happy to have you here. I've been doing this stream now for so many years, and this is the first mom who has raised their hand to identify themselves. Thank you so much for being with us, Carolyn. We're grateful for your son and for everything that he's doing today. Speaking of which, let's talk about what is coming up soon. So not this week, but next week, we do have Chris Alt coming on to the Backstage with Gig Performers screen. And Chris Alt is a guitarist doing all sorts of really interesting things with his... He's doing all sorts of really interesting things with his live setup, using his guitar to trigger synthesizers and various different sounds. And his goal of his band is to get people up and dancing. So if you're in for a good time, do join us next Thursday for that stream. But today, we have special guest Russ Gilbert of Barley and the South Bay Jam coming in. Russ has done a lot of really cool things. And if you look on the screen slideshow right now, you can see various iterations of his rig. But I think what's most profound about chatting with him and listening to how he thinks about what he's doing and really bringing something that's flexible to the table is Russ has managed to build a rig that other people that are not him can use. And a lot of times we have folks coming on and they build impressive and reliable setups. But if anybody else were to sit behind their computer and try and do the thing, it wouldn't work. And this is, in every sense, the exact opposite. Russ has managed to build a rig that is so friendly and easy to use and so flexible that week after week at the South Bay Jam, other keyboard players are able to step in and use Gig Performer, not just to play, a handful of sounds, but to actually play sounds from songs. And that is impressive and super powerful. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our interview. So welcome to the Backstage stream, Russ.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How's it going, man?
Oh, it's good.
Good.
Struggling a little. Had a late gig last night, and it's early here on the West Coast. So
I believe it. And was last night your actual South Bay Jam?
it was. It's every Wednesday at Lighthouse in Hermosa Beach, where we have a theme with a unique group of songs every week. And more than that, there's usually 3 or 4 keyboardists per night that have to come up and use this rig. And we're not going to swap out the keyboard rig between songs and songs. Sorry, my in-ears are just coming right out.
It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah. So as I was saying, with the different keyboardists, we have to change songs very fast, and there's no time to do, like, if I'm going to jump into this is a NARF sound that I play. No time to explain how this all works, where the splits are, all that. It's really just, hey, here's the keyboard things. This keyboard does this keyboard does that. You have 2 seconds. Get ready to play your song.
Yep.
So that's really what this rig is for.
Yes.
The other piece of it is that a lot of the time I'll play a song once It's not necessarily a song I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to have to build a whole rack space, keep the rack space, find the rack space. It's much easier to just say, hey, for this song, I'm going to use Keyscape and I'm going to throw Juno strings underneath it. And I'm going to play it for 4 minutes and then never think about it again.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So it sounds like the context for you really is because of the nature of everything needing to be super duper flexible, you had to build a rig that was as unshockable as a live jam session. Is that correct?
Exactly. Because the other piece of it is at the end of the night, we usually have about 20, 30 minutes where it's unplanned and people are going to call whatever they're going to call. And if I don't have the rack space ready to go, it's like, well, I just got to punch up what I punch up and let's play.
Yeah. So as I'm thinking, right off the top of my head, and we're going to focus on this because I obviously didn't ask you to prepare anything else. Are there times where you have to build different setups? Or is this your rig? Do you use this even when you're not at the South Bay Jam?
This is my rig for the most part because it's just so flexible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So most of Barley is vintage instruments. So it's organ, it's piano, it's a Wurlitzer, a Rhodes here and there. Once in a while, it might be a clav, but this rig lets me do that very, very effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's no reason to build a whole thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So as I'm thinking through this, I'm trying to imagine myself stepping onto the stage at the South Bay Jam and not
Sure.
knowing Gig Performer. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, how do I control this thing? So what have you done to make it so anybody can step up and alter your settings?
Well, I usually set it up for them. They get a hang of it after, once or twice.
Okay.
But usually there's 3 tiers.
Okay.
And so I've got a Hammond M solo up at the top now.
Yep.
I've got an Arturia 88 and then what's called the Piano de Voyage at the bottom. So I've got 2 tiers of 88s, and then the Hammond's very small, but it's a Hammond. So
yes,
you don't usually use the left hand that much. So the rig is set up. We've got 2 banks of synths here.
Yep.
So this is just Arturia, little bit of Roland Cloud in
the
there.
Screen. Sorry, just so people can see. Okay, go ahead. Say just the part on the screen again.
Yeah, so you've got 2 banks of synths at the top.
Yep.
And so it's mostly Arturia, a little bit of Roland there.
Yep.
Each one of these synths has its own fader, so you can set the level for it individually.
Yep.
And then the bank has a master gain so that you can set it relative to everything else.
Yep.
Then you can assign each bank to upper, middle, or lower. So it's really intuitive where you say, okay, I want this OBX sound on the middle tier. I want it to be this loud, and there it goes.
Yes. Yes, and for folks who are watching right now, they may notice that there's no mouse on the screen.
Yes.
Why is that?
I use a touch screen. That's actually one of the key pieces of this.
Yes.
So it's a Mac. It's a Mac Mini that I've mounted inside my pedal board.
Yes.
Where it's very well protected. Been there I guess 3-4 years, however long I've used Gig Performer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use a touch screen, and then I've got this little guy. It's this little Bluetooth mouse and keyboard that I basically use to log in, and if I need to tweak Gig Performer, like if I need to tweak a rack space or something.
Yes.
But almost everything else I just do with the touch screen.
Yes. And we were talking yesterday. By the way, is this a complete or almost complete redesign of what I saw yesterday?
Well, it's last week. And yes, I did. I told you I might do this I did an out of town gig. And so it's not a complete redesign.
Okay.
It's just the next evolution of it, really.
It looks so good. And I have to say, what I love about looking at this is, if you explaining it to me is really helpful, but I can actually tell what you've done. Looking at the front panels, I clearly see upper, middle, lower on the left. I clearly see the master gains and all of the different things. I feel like, now granted, I'm biased because I understand how Gig Performer works, but when I look at that, I'm like, I know what's happening here. And it's not too dissimilar to how you may have designed, a hardware flow, which is really helpful. But when we were talking, you were sharing with me that the touchscreen actually works really well for most things.
Yes, it does.
Why?
Well, so one of the things I like about Gig Performer is you can set your UI to be whatever you want. Mm-hmm. So my day job, I do a lot of UI work, so this isn't a completely alien thing for me. But as long as you've got the switches and the buttons, fingertip size, this works really well. So I can just take my finger and move the slider.
Yep.
Move it over here. You've got to make sure that things are separated a certain amount. But in general, this works like it would be a hardware synth.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So it's a little bit of design magic. And is this the first touchscreen that you used?
On the Mac, you mean?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you had to go through any like iterations of hardware to land on this particular touchscreen.
No, this is an espresso display. I don't think they make this model anymore.
Okay.
But it's worked very well since the first day.
Okay.
I have another touch display that also works quite well, and then you can also do it with an iPad.
Wow. Okay. Okay, you can do it with an iPad also. Is that only using an Apple Pencil, or you can do it with your fingers?
I believe you can do it with your fingers. Wow. I'm not sure. I always use this. So
okay, got it. Yeah. So what's awesome is, but how did you pick this display? Did you just read reviews on Amazon?
I did, and this was originally for my mobile office.
Okay.
In fact, all my music gear is originally for my mobile office, and it gets sort of handed down to my music rig.
Yeah.
I have a hard time taking any piece of equipment I depend on for my job to a bar.
Right.
But at a certain point, the stuff ages out, and then it gets reassigned.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about some things that are coming up in my head because I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of this. So I see that for this particular rack space, you have approximately no variations.
Right.
So that means that all of the sounds that you're picking, I assume it's not enough just to turn them on and off. How are you dealing with getting the sound you need for a particular song?
It's not much more than turning it on and off.
Okay.
So I think I mentioned that I was traveling and I've had kind of a crazy week. And so last night, for example, we discovered in the song that was before Heaven by Bryan Adams that no one was assigned to Heaven by Bryan Adams, which means I have to do it.
Got it.
So there was nothing prepared. I hadn't practiced it or even listened to it.
Nice. We're off to a good start.
So in the 45 or so seconds I discovered and had to solve that problem, it was just like, okay, I'm going to do keyscape.
Yep.
I'll throw some Druno strings behind it, set the level, and then thank you for reminding me about that. Okay. Yeah, and in 45 seconds, that was ready to go.
Wow.
And that's all that had to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. What about if you're dealing with like, I'm trying to think. What if you're playing Jump, like,
sure.
and you need like, you mentioned you have some NARF Sounds stuff in here.
Oh yeah.
So I assume there are certain tunes where you're doing that. Are you ever having to open Arturia to open presets, or not really?
Never.
Wow.
Never. So I can, right? So if I wanted to pop this up, again, this is all touchscreen, and it's very easy for me to select a preset from here.
I can't see it. Is it open right now?
It is.
It may be because you're screen sharing, not.
Yeah, let me see if I can fix that for you. How about now?
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So what these blue buttons are under the switches are the actual plugins.
Got it.
So if I want to open up my OBX, I happen to be on Jump right now.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's the first one, right? I think in this.
But let's say I had to say Tom Sawyer.
Okay.
Right? Also on this synth.
Yep.
So I go here. I go to my Tom Sawyer patch. And then that's all there I have to do.
And how many times have you played Tom Sawyer at this jam?
Probably 3 or 4. It's not one that comes up a lot.
I was just thinking, I was like, man, the people, if you're going to a jam session, I'm trying to think what the equivalent is in the jazz world. It's like there's some serious people playing this song. If
yeah.
that's what they're calling, like they're not playing games. They're legit.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I mean, certain songs we know are coming, so we'll give ourselves 2 weeks to practice it.
Okay.
That's actually not a hard keyboard song, but the drummer and the bass player are doing some work.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Okay, cool. So I think what I'm kind of putting together based off what you're talking here is you have very carefully selected the most versatile and commonly used preset from each of these iconic synths that are
Yep.
And so you might not be exactly right, but you're going to be close enough that it's going to work.
Close enough for rock and roll.
Okay. Fantastic. All right.
And we also, we picked the songs on Friday, so I've got time to prep and get these things ready.
Okay. I do want to talk about that too, but let's keep gig performing for now because I'm like, this is insanely cool. All right, let's jump to your wiring view.
Sure.
And I haven't seen it yet, but okay, that is what I thought it was going to look like. So, and honestly, I'm glad, and I'll tell you why. I feel like this is a perfect example of the mental decluttering that widgets can do for you. In other words, you do need all of the stuff you have here, but you don't need to see it while you're playing. You only need to see a couple of things while you're playing, and so you can have a wiring view that looks like this, which is actually more organized than some wiring views that I've seen. But you can have one that looks like this and still have a beautifully organized front panel that makes a ton of sense. Yep. So for folks who don't understand what they're looking at, can you maybe go top down and explain the signal flow?
Sure. So I've got my inputs here at the top. And so there's 2 banks, right? There's the upper and the lower.
Okay.
So I've got the M solo one, Keylab one, and I call this the Voyager. It's a piano de voyage.
Yes,
it's French,
which is very cool. Is it worth talking about that? What is that?
It's a MIDI controller that splits into 4 pieces.
Okay.
So I can actually put it in the same backpack that I carry the M solo with, and I can bring in a Hammond and an 88 in one trip without using my hands.
Yeah, it's really nice. And how does it feel to play?
Well, candidly, better than you think.
Okay.
You can set the touch sensitivity however you like.
Right.
It's a little stiffer than the Arturia probably.
Okay.
But it's very playable.
Okay. That's really cool. And folks, I did do a little bit of looking at this yesterday. I have no need for one, but it's pretty enticing. They've done a really good job. It's very cool. Okay,
it's very basic.
I cut you off in the middle. So, So basically what you're saying is those orange blocks represent keyboards. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. And then so every time I turn one of these on and off, it's just basically bypassing or unbypassing each of these inputs.
Got it. And are those radio buttons, or you have the ability to have more than one keyboard control the sounds?
More than one at a time.
Okay.
So that if I want to layer something like for a lot of 80s stuff, I like to layer the Juno strings and the D50.
Got it.
Oh, wait, hang on. That is not what I expect to happen. You get that nice with the bells and the strings.
It almost sounds a little bit like Windows 95 is booting up.
Well, that one does, but yeah.
Which I'm like,
there's a ton of 80 songs that just sound like that.
You're right. What's funny is when I heard that sound, I had a moment where I flashed back to being like 10 years old, looking at a Windows computer, and I was like, oh man.
Yeah, but a lot of times I'll use this for like Pink Floyd, like. Yeah, that kind of thing.
It is that 80s sound, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can layer that, or I can throw strings under it.
Yep.
It's really versatile in that way.
Yep.
So that's why I didn't do radio buttons. I thought about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I assumed you would want to have the option, and then I was like, well, do you in this context? And it seems like, yes, you want to have the option.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So these all run directly into the VSTs with nothing in between them.
Correct. And I just use the VST effects if I need to use effects.
Got it. And then you've got it running into a mixer.
Yep.
And
so the mixer is what these sliders next to each button is.
Okay. Got it.
So that way I can set the levels relative to each other within the bank.
Got it.
Then those go into the master gains, which are these red on the left. so that I can set the bank relative to any other instrument that's playing.
Yep. Got it.
And then from there it goes into the global.
It does. Okay,
and the
cool.
reason it goes into global is so I can send it to your listen to plugin and you can hear it.
Exactly. Wait, is that why, or do you do this during your shows too?
What do you? Well, I may as well leave it like this,
Yeah, right. Well,
and actually, what this does let me do in here is it goes into a final master gain.
Yes.
Which is the whole rig over on the right. Even the Hammond goes through that.
Got it. Yeah. So we did gloss over that. The Hammond that you're currently using is hardware, right?
Correct.
But you're considering giving it the boot, I heard.
It's not. I was.
Mm-hmm.
This is just lighter. I mean, this is a solid controller.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's a good Hammond, so I'll probably keep it.
Right. Got it. Okay. Cool. So you've got the master gain there at the end, and those audio in processing. Is that because you are taking the Hammond, or are you singing also?
No, I don't sing much.
Okay.
Not when I want people to stay.
Okay. Great.
So yeah, this is the Hammond.
Okay.
So it comes in from the Focusrite.
Yep.
And right now it's a Focusrite. That's a point of frustration, actually.
Okay.
But it goes into an EQ. Whoops. It goes into an EQ. Then it goes into H delay.
Yeah.
Then it goes into T-Rex Leslie.
Yes.
Then I've got this channel strip, and then out through the master gain.
Got it. And how did you land on that Leslie plugin? Was that just your favorite one and you tried a lot, or you got that first and you were pretty happy?
I tried a lot. I tried all of them.
Okay.
And I'm told there's a better one, and I can't remember what it's called. Hammond Tone is my great white whale.
Okay.
There's a specific way I like to sound.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm close.
Okay. What would get it over the finish line for you?
The vent pedal, I've paid with every single Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
This is iteration 461 of this particular chain.
Okay. And what you said it's almost the way you want it to sound. Is it just sort of like you can't replace the Leslie like a real one? Is that what it is?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
It's pretty much it. I used to carry around Leslie 825 and then 2101.
Yep.
And that was when I was younger and my back didn't hurt like it does now.
Understand. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. What was your runner-up Leslie plugin?
I liked, it doesn't exist anymore, but I liked the GG Spin plugin.
Okay.
That was pretty good. Honestly, I really like the IK Multimedia Hammond stuff. I get stuck notes. That's why I went back to having a hardware synth.
Yep. And that's something I've heard about the IK Multimedia organ more than once.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Sounds amazing. It's actually the only one that actually made me consider not bringing a Hammond hardware anymore.
Wow.
But stuck notes are a deal breaker.
Yeah. Well, of course, especially for a live. Okay. So you've got two VSTs there in the global rack. They both say Keyscape. Yep. Do you use them?
Yeah. So if we go back to here, I've got the same setup with Keyscape as I do with my synth banks. I've got an upper, I've got two banks, and then I can assign them to upper, middle, or lower.
Got it.
So if I want Rhodes and piano at the same time, I use bank 1 and bank 2 set on different things. So I'll just do that right now. Turn off the OBX, turn on this, and there's my Rhodes.
Nice.
And there's my piano.
Nice. And it looks like you have different versions. Are those effects that you're applying, or are you changing presets inside of Keyscape with those widgets there?
Like changing Keyscape, I'm changing it inside of Keyscape. And that was a kind of a little trick I had to figure out.
Yes. Talk to us. What did you do?
Yeah. So I can pop Keyscape open, and I can change my touch sensitivity because sometimes it doesn't load properly, which is annoying.
Okay.
But then you see you've got all these. But you see a little symbol next to the Rhodes there? So if I hit the rock piano, it's going to change inside Keyscape.
Got it.
And so the way that you have to do that, it's not intuitive at all, is you have to go into edit mode in Gig Performer.
Okay.
And let me show you how I did that. So go to edit mode in Gig Performer. And then go to global. So then you have to assign the button to Keyscape at a specific control channel. And I just put them up at 100 because no one's using those.
Okay.
Then once you've done that, you can go back into Keyscape and then use this and set MIDI CC learn.
Uh-huh.
And then all you got to do is touch the button and it'll assign it.
Got it.
And that's where that little symbol comes from. So when I've got Keyscape up, so this has got piano, and I want to go to, you know, a nice phased Rhodes. It's going to the phased Rhodes preset inside of Keyscape.
Wow. You know what's interesting is most of the time when I talk to people about their rigs, I tell them, don't change sounds inside of your VSTs. And I have reasons for saying that, but in your context, this makes the most sense. Doing it.
Yeah, it's been really solid.
Yeah. Well, it gives you, it sort of achieves your goal, your use case, which is that it has to be flexible. And this is another question. Are you ever changing sounds mid-song?
Boy, not when I can help it.
Okay.
It does happen, especially if I'm doing a dual thing. So the reason I set the rig up the way that I do is I've got a Hercules stand that's got the Hammond and it's got the Arturia, but then I've got a second, just a little onstage X stand, so I can swing the bottom tier out into an L if I need to.
Okay.
So there's a lot of complicated 80s stuff where it'll take two of us, and so that's very easy to accomplish with this. Sometimes I do custom rack spaces for those two, or sometimes that's a NARF sound. You never know.
Yes. Yep. Okay. That also makes sense too, because if you're not dealing with changing sounds mid-song, then you're not dealing with seamless transitioning between sounds. Actually, are you able to show us your hardware? I know I've seen it a million times, but are you able to kind of talk us through that setup?
Sure.
I know you said you have the Ghost camera, switching into Blair Witch mode.
Yep.
Hey, all right. This looks beautiful. Okay, so that's the piano D Voyage at the bottom, right?
Yep.
Okay. And your key lab in the middle?
Yep.
And what's the top one?
That is the Hammond M Solo.
Got it.
So it's a 49 key Hammond. This is the latest edition.
Okay.
When I did my walkthrough, I was actually still using my XKX Pro.
Got it.
But I bought this to travel, and then I was like, this is really light and easy. I think this is my rig now.
Yep. Makes sense. And then you've got the monitor right there. And you also have, where is your computer living?
1 second, Brett, my in-ear fell out.
Sure.
Ask me that again?
Where is your computer currently mounted in this new configuration? Because it was under your top keyboard, right? Is it still there?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's over here off to the side.
Got it.
So I've got the second screen I'm using for Zoom on the Mac.
Yep.
Don't usually bring that to gigs.
Right.
But then the Mac itself is actually down. I can't really see it.
Oh,
but it's inside the pedal board.
I saw it there. You could see it kind of peeking through.
Yeah.
Yep. Got it. Okay, cool. And then which stand swings? What's the swinging stand?
The swinging stand?
You said sometimes you need two keyboardists.
Oh, yeah. It's down here. It's just this on stage. I can just pull it right out and just move it over to the right or to the left.
Yep. Okay. So, and does that take some creative setting up of your wires to make that feasible, or?
It's not so much creative. It's just I make sure I wire that last, and the pedal and the I use a very long USB for it. I make sure those are on the outside so that it's very easy to swing it.
Got it. Speaking of which, how do you deal with pedal messages? Does each keyboard get its own pedal, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so Gig Performer does a good job of isolating it.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is if I've got all three, is I put both pedals right next to each other. So if I want to, I can hit both.
Yep.
Or I can do one or the other.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if you could see that.
I can now. Yep. And then what do you have going down there on the left? You've got some foot switches.
Yeah. So this is the Hammond speed control over here.
Okay.
This is an FBV line 6, which is not hooked up right now because I had to use the port for the mic.
Yep.
But it's great to, if I change anything during the gig itself,
Yep.
it's what this pedal is assigned to.
Okay.
So if I want it to just control one synth, or if I wanted to control a master gain, that's a really easy thing to change on the fly.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And I can do it with the touchscreen without having to go into the mouse or keyboard or anything.
Ah, that's nice. How often do you end up using the mouse or keyboard? Or is it just kind of like just in case?
It's a just in case. So I use it to log in to the computer, put in the password.
Yep, makes sense.
Many gigs, that's it.
Okay.
Like, so last night in what we call the slush time, someone called Rebel Yell.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, well, I got to go grab the NARF sound for that.
Yep.
And I think I used the mouse and keyboard for it.
Of course.
It's possible to do it with your touch screen, but I didn't.
Yeah. At some point, it's like what's possible and then what's the most functional.
Yeah. Possible and practical are two
right.
different things a lot of the time.
Right. Which, if you haven't checked out NARF Sounds and you're watching right now and you play this style of music, well, what would you say about NARF Sounds, Russ?
I would say if I could marry someone I've never met, I would say that'd be the guy.
That'd be the guy. Yeah.
My wife would be pretty upset,
right.
but
yes.
he has saved me many times. I did have the experience. We did an 80s night, I don't know, 6 months ago, and I had to build my own Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Okay.
So that's samples, that's Fairlight, that's all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 days later, he released his third pack that had Owner of a Lonely Heart. And I was like, I battle the master.
Yep. When I listen to his sounds, it just sort of feels like, well, that's the sound.
Yep.
Or it's it's not even like, oh, that could be like the sound. It just is the sound. Like he did it.
Yeah, it is the sound. The only thing is some of them will crush my PC.
Okay.
Or it's my Mac, actually. Yep. Mm-hmm. So we actually did Don't You Forget About Me last night.
Okay.
And I had to tell the guy who was playing, it wasn't me. So at idle, you see it's at 34% here.
Yep. Let me bring it up for everyone else. Sorry. Okay.
And you see it jumps up to 80.
Yeah.
I said, don't play these at the same time.
Okay.
Or that'll happen.
Got it. So what has to be done one at a time?
Those two parts.
Got it.
I don't know if you could hear that or not.
Yeah, I did hear it. It's wild. It's wild that you know that. Or just that you're like, oh, it's fine as long as you do this.
Well, sure. I've done this a lot.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Well,
that is a song that gets called a lot.
Yeah.
I probably play that song 12 times a year, despite it not being in any of the bands that I play in.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that one, Take On Me. Yeah, they're just 80 standards, and NARF really hits those very well.
Yep. And so do you work around that? I know you're saying like, oh, don't do this. Do you ever adjust the patches, or you just tell people don't do that?
Well, I frequently adjust the patches, so because I've got 3 tiers. So a lot of times he's changing variations, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Rather than do that, I'll just assign various parts to various boards.
Got it.
That's probably my most common hack of NARF stuff.
Okay.
In certain situations, like I know that the NARF set, like at some point I'm going to get an M4 that'll probably solve this problem. Mm-hmm. But until then, there are certain situations where I know that the NARF sound is too much for the PC. So I just work around it with this, essentially.
Right. And I'm looking at your full setup here, and it's idling it. Is that 16 or 18?
It's at 18, and that's with 2 keyscapes running.
Wow.
So if I turn those off, it frees up the resources immediately. Mm-hmm. And Keyscape doesn't take a lot. Mm-hmm. One thing I actually really like about gigperformer is the minute you bypass a plugin, it's over. The resources are freed immediately, and you can do something else. So, like, the CS80 is pretty heavy. Mm-hmm. So hang on, where did I have that? So by itself, So if I layer that with something, it gets to be pretty gnarly pretty quickly. And if I turn all these on, it'll probably go to like 60%, something like that. Called it.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm pretty aware of the capabilities of the hardware.
Right.
And this makes it very easy to do that. There's literally no situation where I need to turn all those on at the same time.
Right. The rig that I play with most often, I'm playing and it's usually at 50 or 60%, and it's always fine. It doesn't idle there, but when I'm playing, it's
80 is where I start to worry.
Yep. Right.
But even now, like, that brings it up to 40.
Right.
With a keyscape running and the CS80. CS80 is, I think, the heaviest Arturia.
Yep. I would have to agree with you. What are you doing with your time clock, or is that the title of a song?
Oh, this is the audio player.
Got it.
So this is where I put my samples. So if I do play LA Woman, I can just cycle through whatever I've got in there. So this is actually the intro to Time by Pink Floyd.
Got it.
This is the intro to LA Woman. So I just press that and that happens. I went through and I AI stripped the bass and drum out of this so that I can just play it.
Wow.
Couldn't get those hi-hats.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, just go in.
Wow.
So that's again for the jam, very, very key. Where if I can load up my samples ahead of time in the streaming player, and then I can just cycle through them here without having to bring the streaming player up. I got the volume. It's just a quick and go.
Yep. Absolutely. And I see you also have transpose buttons there. Did you have to write scripting for that, or is that system actions?
Nope. So that goes into the global.
Okay.
Goes straight into system actions.
Got it.
And let's see. It's right here.
I see it.
So that's all that is.
I see it. And do you end up using that often?
No, everyone knows that real keyboardists never transpose 5 or 6 times a night.
Man, there's some folks that I play with that transpose almost every song. I
don't do that. It's funny. When I first started playing, I was using it a ton because I had to.
Right.
Then I got to a place where I was like, well, no, I'm a real keyboardist. No, I won't transpose. I'll play this in E flat minor or whatever. And now I'm like, I have nothing to prove. If I'm going to play a song, I'd rather play it in E minor +1.
Got it.
Or -1. Yeah.
Yep. It's always the worst for me if it's like a part and somebody is like, okay, we actually need to take this up a third or something. And then I'm going, oh, what's the part?
So the other thing with the jam is I'll get a song called that I've played 1 billion times. Something simple like What's Up by 4 Non Blondes. That's probably the most commonly transposed. But the singer will come in and say, hey, I want to do this in B flat. I'm like, well, you play it in whatever you want. I'm not going to fight my muscle memory.
Right.
I'm going to play it in A.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's probably my most common. It's not because I can't play it. It's just a muscle memory thing. And I don't want to be in my head when I'm playing. I'd rather just be in the moment as opposed to worrying about the chords.
Yep. 100%. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about preparation because you mentioned you have a couple of days to prepare. So what is preparation like for this gig? And I guess specifically, how are you dealing with Gigperformer when you're preparing for a jam?
Well, here, I can actually show you that. Yeah. To drag it over.
Yep.
Give me a second. I hope this works. I'm probably going to have to make Gigperformer smaller. Come on. There we go. So most of the planning happens here. Oh, great. I just gave some people's phone numbers. Perfect. So this is still from last night.
Okay.
It hasn't been reset yet because that's my job and it's early.
Yep.
So each part gets assigned, and so as you can see, certain songs will have multiple keyboard players on them.
Yep, I see that.
And then we also have in the keyboard area, this is just for us, we have this sheet. So this top part mirrors what's on the planning sheet, so we know what time things are, who's on it, who's singing, that kind of thing. And then we all can go in and request what we want in each song.
Got it.
So this is from last night. So, Axel F is easy. Careless Whisper with strings and Rhodes. Mm-hmm. Unless the saxophone player doesn't show up, then you also want a piano to play the lead.
Yep.
Which is what happened last night.
Got it.
But yeah, you get the idea here. In some cases, they'll ask for a specific synth, like they'll say DX7 EP or something. Mm-hmm. But this lets us coordinate as many people as we need, and we keep it alphabetical so the order doesn't change.
Got it. And what did you do for money for nothing?
That was an NARF Sound.
Got it.
So if we go back to Gig Performer here,
I saw that there was nothing written in there, and I thought, oh no.
Yeah. Well, that was me. I had to play that one.
Got it.
And as you can see, it's just right there.
Yep. Perfect. And so you are switching rack spaces.
Yeah, here and there.
Okay. How?
Like this.
Because it's a touchscreen.
Because it's a touchscreen.
Wow.
Yep.
It should have been like, of course, that's how you're doing it. But I wasn't even thinking. I'm like, do you have a secret button mapped?
A lot of times in setlist mode, I will use the FPV controller.
Okay.
So if I'm having to go through, different song parts, normally I can just tap a foot and it'll advance for me.
Right.
But that's not hooked up because of the mic.
Yep. Got it. So there are some advantages to having a touch screen nearby.
A lot of advantages
beyond just being able to change volume or whatever. It's always in my mind I'm like, oh, I can't ever touch my computer, but that's not the case if you have a touchscreen.
No, it really feels like part of the rig. I mean, it's just sitting here right above the drawbars and the overdrive and delay on the Hammond. And it's just another set of controls.
Yep.
It'd be nice if they were physical, but at the same time, it's just so light and quick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the issue too that you bump into with the physical controllers is that they sort of are what they are.
Yep.
So if you need something super specific like this, I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is that 14 vertical faders? Did I count that right? Like
there's 12 in each row.
Okay, got it. So is there a controller with 12 faders horizontally? Do you get 2 of them?
No.
Right.
They stop at 9, and there aren't even that many at 9 anymore.
Right. Plus the buttons or whatever. So there's something to be said for that. We did an interview with Harry Trendle, who's often visits the backstage streams, and I was asking him about MIDI controllers, and he was like, MIDI controllers are the old age.
Yep.
The new age is touchscreen, and he uses Duet on an iPad.
Oh wow. Same
idea, just that you can interface with whatever widgets you have very easily. And we also have folks who use Touch OSC or Lemur to achieve similar functionality. So that's really cool. Well, folks who are watching, if you have questions for Russ, let's start putting them in the chat so we can get them answered. Russ, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, my next challenge here is I want to figure out how to do splits on each of these synth banks. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably use radio buttons, but obviously that's going to mean the UI needs to change. Yep. But I don't have to buy anything. I just have to figure out how I want it to work.
Yep, absolutely. I want to see that iteration.
I will.
I'm very excited for that. I'm like, as you're saying that, I'm going, okay, I have this. These are the 15 ways you can do it.
Yep, I've it's in my head. I just got to figure out which one I want to do. Yep. And finding the screen wheel estate is also a challenge.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Okay, cool. So we've talked through most of what's going on here. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything super important about this setup overall or about your workflow. Can you think of anything I've missed?
I think we covered most of it.
Okay. So do you, and this is, I guess, only slightly Gig Performer related, but at this point, have you played all of the songs that get called, or is there some sort of dedicated practice time that you're having to do to make sure you actually know the tunes?
Well, it depends on the week,
Yeah.
right? So there are certain weeks, like if it's punk rock week, I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time,
Okay.
right? If it's like last night was 1985, which was, it would have been next week, which is the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, but that'll be America songs because it's July 4th week. So
Got it.
we did it this week instead.
Got it.
But 80s stuff that requires a bit of prep.
Okay.
Figuring out who's going to play what sounds go where. If there's a NARF sound, will it work on this rig? If not, what's plan B?
Yep. Got it. Got it. And how much setup time is it usually? Like when you get to the venue, because you have a lot of gear.
Well, it's exactly 1 hour because there's a band on before us. They stop at 7. We get an hour, and then we downbeat at 8.
Okay. And of that time, how much of it is setting your keyboard up, or do you spend a full hour setting up keyboards?
I try to set up the keyboard as fast as I can, unless like last night I have to spend 40 minutes trying to park, which in the summer in Hermosa Beach is a factor. But ideally, this goes up and down in about 20 minutes if I really push it.
Okay.
And ideally, I have 40 minutes to work with the other keyboard players and make sure that they're happy with their patches, they understand where everything works, and just get things dialed in.
Do you have an onboarding process for new keyboard players?
Not really, because it's such a rare thing. Like we've got about a half dozen people who come in any given week. There's 3 or 4 of us.
Okay.
I wish there were more. I mean, you'd think keyboardists would be a dime a dozen, but keyboardists who are up for this particular challenge, that's a special breed.
It is a special breed, and it is interesting. I haven't quite put all of this together. There is an organist / keyboardist connection that I've started to notice, where there are so many people who become keyboardists who were organ players or are organ players. And there's something about the headspace of playing organ that I don't know what it does to your brain.
It goes, for me, it went the other direction. So I grew up playing a piano.
Yeah.
And then I had a Casio keyboard. It wasn't until I really moved to LA and a friend of mine sold me his Hammond XK3. He moved to New York right after I got here. And I was like, what is this? And then I happened to meet a guy named Steve Aguilar, who you should, by the way, have on. He also uses Gig Performer.
Great, I will.
Who was really into organ, and he started showing me things. And to your point, a switch just pop.
Yep.
And like organ's just a whole different thing. It looks like a piano. It is not.
Not a piano. Not a piano.
Yep.
Yeah, but if you're a keyboard player, you are a keyboard player. I remember learning as a kid and, considering like, oh, do I want to play the piano? And I was like, I don't think I'm a piano player. I think I'm a keyboard player. And I didn't have a grid for exactly what that meant. But, fast forward however many years later, I'm like, oh, it's totally different. It's not just enough to be a musician. You have to have this other, it's an other thing. It's definitely an other thing. All right.
I mean, my journey has been piano into electric piano. I liberated a Wurlitzer from my school drama wing when I was like 10th grade. It was all the labels were off. I didn't even know what kind of electric piano it was. I just knew I loved the sound.
Yes.
But EP and like Wurlitzer and Rhodes, they're like a piano. Maybe you've got a tremolo dial, but that's the only real difference. It's all about how hard you're hitting the keys to get the tone to change.
Yep.
Then organ's a whole different thing, and I got into that, and now my last frontier is kind of the analog synth world.
Yep. Have you started there? Is that happening at all yet?
Big time, and Gig Performer is a major reason why, because I can pop up any analog device I want and start to figure out how it works.
Yep. Makes a ton of sense. So,
and YouTube helps a lot too.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. For folks who are trying to get into Gig Performer, I always think that I should put this in the email for guests, but I do it every week, and I'm like, you didn't have any time to think of this question. Answer quickly. But for somebody who's trying to get started with Gig Performer, they're brand new to the software. Do you have any words of wisdom and/or advice for getting started smoothly?
See, that's tough. And I learned this in my professional career. I've worked with a lot of very high performing, remarkable people. And sometimes I ask them for advice. And for that advice to work, the first step is you have to be them. And I feel like with me, I sat into Gig Performer and it just, I teach myself everything also,
Yes.
which makes me a bad teacher sometimes because I just do things that make sense to me. They don't necessarily make sense to other people. Yep. But what I would do is start really simple, with the wiring diagram, start with an input, start with a VST, go straight into the output and just see how that feels. Then you can, start to play around with the UI stuff over here on the left, understand what all of these things do. And then start to think about if you worked at Roland or you worked at Korg or you worked at Yamaha, what would you want what would you want them to build?
Yep.
And Gig Performer is going to let you build pretty much that if you want.
Yep. I love that answer, and I love that your answer was so tailored to something that people can physically imagine. Because I can see your thought process of everything you just said fleshed out before my very eyes in this rig. So that's awesome. Friends, this is the last call for questions. If you have any, do feel free to put them. We do have Old Kaiser who wrote in and said, I never thought about an approach like this. Very cool, Russ. And actually, I never thought about this either.
I get that a lot in a lot of things that I do, not just this.
Why do you suppose that is?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's some wire in my brain is plugged in backwards or something.
Or maybe everybody else is plugged in backwards and yours is plugged in forwards.
I've had both experiences.
Yes. Well, Russ, thanks for being with us. How do folks get in touch with you if they are trying to connect with the jam or if they're trying to connect with you? Is it forum, Facebook?
You can hit me on forum.
Okay.
My email is russgilbert@gmail.com. I'm old enough that my Gmail is just my name. No numbers or anything. I got called out for that by a young coworker a little bit ago. How old are you that you just have Russ Gilbert? Okay. But then there's a website at southbayjam.com if you're in the LA area or you're visiting LA and you'd like to play with us. Where it's a really open and inclusive community. I don't know what I'd do with that. I've been doing it. It'll be 10 years that it's existed next year. We actually did it during the pandemic using Jamulus online.
Wow.
Yeah. So we just kept it going because we didn't have that much else to do at the time.
Is that what you have your giant live streaming rig for?
Partially. And then also the agency that I worked for at the time, we pivoted to doing virtual events.
Got it.
And so I had to basically build a TV station in my house. Yeah. So we had like dual video switchers broadcasting like 10-hour days.
Yep.
Starting at 10 a.m. We did stuff for like the NFL and California State University and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Wow. That's wild.
Yep. But all really cool stuff I never really ever want to do again.
Yep. Oh my goodness. I love it. Well, Russ, thanks so much for being here. Folks, we'll be back next week. Yeah, that's what we got for you. Thanks, man. We'll see you all next Thursday. Uh-oh, I said that.
Thanks, bro.
Now I can't find the button. We're stuck on the stream, guys. All right, we'll see you soon.
Let me call into work.